Spring sunlight poured down on the Victorian red brick mansion. April Watson stood by the study window, gazing at the magnolias blooming in the garden. For 32 years, memories in this house had drifted through her mind like scenes from a movie. Located in Brookline's upscale residential district, this house had been the Watson family's pride for generations and a symbol of their social standing. Above the fireplace in the study, with its imposing furniture, family photographs were displayed. April's eyes lingered on one particular photo, a family portrait from 10 years ago, the last one taken before her father passed away. Since then, the family dynamic had gradually shifted. "April, you've taken care of the preparations for this week's church charity event, haven't you?" Turning around, she saw her mother, Margaret Watson, elegantly sipping her tea. As the vice president of St. Mary's Hospital, her mother always carried an air of dignity. Dressed in a Brooks Brothers two-piece suit with a modest pearl necklace, she valued her social reputation above all else and was passionate about charitable activities. "Yes, Mother. I'm planning to prepare sweets with the Sunday school children. The Church of Our Savior is also organizing a fundraiser this year for underprivileged children." "Really, how long do you plan to continue with such childish activities?" "If it were me, I'd spend my time on more meaningful pursuits," her sister Caitlin remarked, smoothing her expensive Burberry dress skirt with grace. Married 2 years ago to a doctor at the same hospital, Caitlin prided herself on her model-like beauty and impressive career. While working as a leading gynecologist, she enjoyed shopping at Chestnut Hill Mall and elegant dinners at Legal Seafoods. "Caitlin, spending time with the children is very important to me. It positively influences my editing work," April replied quietly in her simple dress. While working as a children's book editor, she actively participated in church activities. As a devout Christian, serving God was her life's purpose. "Yes, but don't you think it's time you considered marriage? To still be single at your age?" Mother set down her teacup, casting a meaningful glance. April quietly lowered her eyes. Marriage, it was certainly a major concern for this family. The pressure had intensified daily, especially since her sister's marriage. However, over the past 6 months, the family's attention had shifted to another issue. Her sister had been diagnosed with infertility. For Caitlin, a gynecologist, it must have been an unbearable reality. During their weekly Sunday family dinners, everyone carefully avoided the topic. All April could do was silently empathize with her sister's pain. In their spacious mansion facing Beacon Street, the 3 women each harbored their own thoughts. Mother prioritized social status and appearances, her sister focused on her career and happiness, and April cherished her love for family and faith. Though their different values occasionally caused minor friction, they had managed to maintain a balance until now. No one could have imagined that upcoming events would completely overturn this seemingly perfect family's way of life. One Sunday evening, April was summoned to her mother's study. Opening the heavy oak door, she found her mother and sister in the room where the fireplace burned quietly. "April, sit down," Mother's voice carried its usual authority, plus an unusual tension. Mother sat in the special chair by the fireplace, Father's beloved leather armchair, while her sister perched on the window sofa. Both were formally dressed, as if attending an important social function. April took the indicated seat. The evening spring light filtered through the stained glass windows, creating mottled shadows. Family photographs on the walls watched silently like witnesses to history. about this matter. As April tried to continue, Mother quietly raised her hand to stop her. Since your sister can't have children, you will be the surrogate mother. Those words froze the room like a winter wind. April doubted her ears for a moment. But that's... Surely you can do this much for family? Mother's voice was calm, but her eyes held an unyielding will. Her sister crossed her legs gracefully, maintaining an elegant smile. You'll just be carrying my child. Isn't that worth something? There was a cruel undertone to her sister's words. April felt her heart rate quicken. The room's air felt heavy and suffocating. Please give me time to think about it. Until tomorrow. We don't have time to drag this out any longer. Mother's voice was stern and final. April quietly stood and stumbled out of the room. That night, April went to church. The Church of Our Savior's evening chapel was wrapped in silence, moonlight streaming through the stained glass. Kneeling in prayer, her heart was torn by intense conflict. Duty to family. God's will. And her own heart's voice. All mixed together, tormenting her as she sought an answer. Words of prayer flowed with her tears. The next morning, April visited her mother's study with her decision made. She had chosen to comply. She believed it was her final act of service to her family. Several weeks later, the medical procedures began. Everything was conducted in utmost secrecy in St. Mary's Hospital's finest private room. Mother, as the hospital's vice president, guaranteed perfect confidentiality. Her sister, as a gynecologist, supervised all medical procedures. When the pregnancy was confirmed, April was overwhelmed with complex emotions. This was her sister's child. Yet it was undeniably a life growing within her own body. Her prayer time gradually increased. It's twins. The doctor's announcement froze everyone in the room. Mother and sister's expressions twisted for a moment. This was an unexpected development. During the pregnancy, April maintained a perfect lifestyle. Proper nutrition, moderate exercise, sufficient sleep. All for the twins. However, mother and sister's attitudes grew colder by the day. Don't get too emotionally attached. You're just a vessel. Don't give the babies unnecessary influence. Such words became commonplace. Labor came on a cold December night. After 16 hours of contractions, April brought two precious lives into the world. A boy and a girl. When she heard their first cries, her heart felt ready to burst with joy and sorrow. Don't hold them. Straight to the nursery. Her sister's cold instruction shattered the post-delivery happiness. For 6 months after, April was forced to watch the twins' growth from a distance. Occasionally, with her sister's permission, she could observe the babies through the nursery window. But she was never allowed to hold them. Then, one rainy morning. Now that you've given birth, we're done with you. Stop trying to act like a mother. Mother's voice was ice cold. We don't need someone like you around, it would be bad for the children's upbringing, her sister said with a sneer. Pack your things and leave today. April returned to her room and packed her bags, holding back tears. The reality of being banished from the family home she'd lived in for 32 years hadn't quite sunk in yet. Not even allowed a final glimpse of the twins, April dragged her heavy suitcase out into the rain. Looking back, The red brick mansion, wet with rain, seemed colder than ever. April began a new life in a small apartment in the Boston suburbs. She no longer chatted casually with store clerks while shopping at Whole Foods Market. It was a quiet, modest existence, opposite to her former life in high society. Yet her heart felt more at peace. "Ms. Watson, could you tell us more about the new children's book project?" In the publishing house's conference room, April immersed herself in work. A picture book series about the preciousness of young life. It was also her heart's cry. The editor-in-chief showed deep understanding for her project. "What a wonderful project! Let's definitely proceed with the series." Work was her only salvation. But at night, thoughts of the twins would flood in. Hidden in her bookshelf were tiny socks she'd secretly knitted. Her prayer times had grown far longer than before. One Sunday morning after service at the Church of Our Savior, April encountered unexpected visitors. "April, we've been looking for you." It was her paternal grandmother Catherine, with grandfather George beside her. They were supposed to be living a quiet, retired life in their New Hampshire vacation home. "Grandmother. Grandfather." April's voice trembled. Catherine embraced her granddaughter tightly. "We know everything. Margaret's cruelty, Caitlin's selfishness." George's voice carried anger. They had learned about the situation through the church community. "Come to our house right away. But first, there's something you need to do." Catherine took out a business card from her handbag. It belonged to Sarah Bradford, one of Boston's top lawyers. "You should meet her. This isn't just a family matter. It's a legal crime." Those words made April shiver. However, feeling her grandparents' solid support, she began to look forward, little by little. The following week, April met with Sarah Bradford in an upscale office district. Forced surrogacy and psychological abuse. This is a serious case. Sarah's analysis was sharp and precise. Yet April still had doubts. "But they're my family. And the twins you carried are legitimately your family too." Those words resonated with April. The investigation proceeded quietly but steadily. Then the truth came to light in an unexpected way. One rainy night, there was a knock at April's apartment door. Opening it, she found her sister's husband, Michael, standing there. "I need to talk to you." His voice was tired. After inviting him in, following a long silence, Michael began his shocking confession. Caitlin never intended to have children from the start. April caught her breath at those words. She wanted to protect her career and figure. The infertility was a lie. She was just continuing contraception. Michael's voice was strained. But unable to bear the pressure from family and hospital colleagues, she came up with this plan. And Margaret agreed to it. To protect the hospital's reputation and social appearances. Everything connected. Mother's obsessive involvement, her sister's cold attitude, the secret hospital procedures. It had all been meticulously planned. "I want to apologize for staying silent. Those twins should really be raised by you." Michael bowed deeply. April felt pity for him. Perhaps he too had been a victim of this twisted plan. Following his confession, events moved rapidly. Grandfather George immediately called a family meeting. The location, their New Hampshire vacation home. In the reception room with its imposing fireplace, the Watson family's principal members gathered. Including relatives from mother's side, 15 people in total. There, all truths were revealed. This is a serious matter affecting our family's honor. George's voice echoed through the room. Margaret, you did this to your own daughter. And Caitlin, you used your sister as a stepping stone. The blood drained from mother and sister's faces. Relatives' gazes were harsh, full of condemnation. Especially mother's sister's expressions were impossibly cold. We will take all necessary measures to correct this situation. Catherine's voice carried unwavering determination. Mother and sister were completely isolated in that moment. Their social standing and family trust, which had supported them until now, were instantly lost. As she left, April looked up at the full moon visible through the window. This wasn't the end. The real battle was just beginning. In early spring 2026, a heavy atmosphere hung in the Boston family court conference room. April was discussing legal strategy with lawyer Sarah Bradford. We must overcome several hurdles to regain custody of the twins. Sarah carefully chose her words as she continued explaining. First is proving the illegality of the surrogacy contract. Second is establishing you as the de facto mother. And third is proving that your sister and her husband are unsuitable guardians for the children. April nodded quietly. Outside the window, early spring rain fell softly. However, we have favorable evidence. Sarah produced Michael's signed affidavit. It detailed how her sister's infertility was fabricated and the surrogacy was forced. Also, the internal whistleblowing from St. Mary's Hospital is crucial. The head nurse had promised to testify about illegal medical practices. Mother's influence no longer reached that far. By then, the twins, Emily and Noah, were already 3 years old. Monthly supervised visits were allowed following the preliminary hearing. The first visit took place in the court's supervision room. Hello, Emily, Noah. April's voice trembled slightly. The room was prepared with colorful toys, and a supervisor watched discreetly. Though the twins were initially wary, they gradually warmed up when April began reading from the picture book she'd brought. It was one from her new series she'd edited. Read more. April's eyes filled with tears at the children's innocent response. The supervisor meticulously recorded everything. With each visit, the bond with the twins deepened. However, the partings also became harder. Come again. Promise. Their parting words squeezed April's heart. The legal battle proved more intense than expected. Her sister hired expensive lawyers and desperately tried to resist. The defendant is in a position to provide a stable home environment. Meanwhile, the plaintiff. The courtroom fell silent at her sister's lawyer's argument. But Sarah's rebuttal was sharp. Then let me ask, why did the defendant fake infertility to force surrogacy on her sister? Her sister was left speechless. Michael's testimony as a witness was decisive. My wife avoided pregnancy to protect her career and appearance. She conspired with her mother to execute this plan. Shock ran through the courtroom. Whispers emerged from the gallery. The head nurse's testimony also proved crucial. The illegal medical practices were clear. Records were falsified under the vice president's pressure. Mother finally broke her silence on the witness stand. Everything was to protect the family's reputation. The judge cast a stern look at those words. The decisive moment came unexpectedly. One day in court, the twins suddenly requested to testify. "We should hear the children's opinions." The judge carefully considered and decided to hear them in private. In the special courtroom, the twins began speaking in pure children's words. "We love when she reads picture books. It's fun playing with her. Mommy is scary sometimes. Daddy looks sad." Their testimony touched all the adults' hearts. On the final day in court, the judge solemnly began the ruling. "This case goes beyond a simple custody dispute, it concerns human ethics." The courtroom fell completely silent. "I grant full custody to the plaintiff, April Watson. The defendant will be granted limited supervised visitation rights." When the verdict was delivered, April was embraced by her grandparents. Soft applause echoed through the courtroom. That evening, April headed to their new home with the twins. A house near Lars Anderson Park, prepared by her grandparents. "This is our new home." When April announced this, the twins showed innocent smiles. "Big sister, no, Mama." At those words, April couldn't help but hug the twins tightly. Outside the window, spring sunlight streamed in warmly. The story of their new family was just beginning. In early summer 2030, April's house facing Lars Anderson Park was prepared to celebrate the twins' 6th birthday. Colorful balloons swayed in the garden, and a homemade birthday cake sat on the table. "Mama, this is beautiful." Emily happily held up a white lace dress. Noah carefully clutched his new baseball glove. Both children were growing up healthy and strong. "Happy birthday, Emily, Noah." Catherine and George gently embraced their grandchildren. The grandparents had warmly watched over their new family throughout these 4 years. "April, how's the new picture book series selling?" George asked proudly. April nodded with genuine confidence. Her career as a children's book editor had grown even more brilliant than before. The You Are Loved series had become a national bestseller, winning numerous children's literature awards. Particularly, Mama's Love is Like the Stars, which addressed the feelings of children born through surrogacy, had healed many families' hearts. Everyone at the Church of Our Savior's Sunday School is reading them too. Catherine added. April and the twins continued attending the same church, though now from a new location. The church community had warmly accepted and supported their new life. "Teacher, I love Emily and Noah's mom's books too." The twins' classmates invited to the party approached with innocent smiles. Both children were enjoying fulfilling school lives at a private elementary school in Brookline. Oh, and there's a letter from Sarah too. Sarah Bradford, the former lawyer, had become a close family friend. Without her support, today's happiness might not have been possible. Meanwhile, mother and sister's lives had changed dramatically. Margaret lost her position as vice president of the hospital. The discovery of illegal medical practices completely destroyed her credibility in the medical community. Furthermore, she was ostracized from Boston's social circles. Her former friends turned their backs on her. "I heard Margaret moved to Florida." They learned this from a relative's letter. However, no one knew her exact whereabouts. Caitlin's fall was even more dramatic. After divorcing Michael, she moved to the West Coast. She was forced to abandon her career as a gynecologist. Her medical license was temporarily suspended due to malpractice charges. I received a letter from Caitlin. April quietly announced one day. It was a letter of apology. However, April didn't reply. While she could forgive, rebuilding their relationship was still too difficult. Mama, we finished the album. Emily and Noah showed her their handmade album. It was filled with memories from the past 4 years. Their first family vacation. Photos of playing on the beach at Cape Cod. Their first sports day. The two running in perfect sync. Angels' costumes for the Christmas pageant. A huge snowman built on a snowy day. This is our treasure. April embraced her children. The photos always showed 3 happy smiling faces. They depicted a family bound by true love, transcending blood relations. Near the end of the party, unexpected guests arrived, the church pastor and his wife. April, we'd like to publish your story in the church newsletter. The pastor began. He believed it would support many people as a testimony of finding true family love through adversity. Thank you. But could I have some time to think about it? April answered quietly. This story wasn't over yet. Rather, in the truest sense, it had only just begun. At dusk, they were cleaning up in the garden. The twins were carefully organizing the presents they'd received from friends. Mama, do you think it'll be sunny tomorrow? I hope we can go to the park. Let's take Grandma with us too. The children's bright voices echoed in the garden. April cherished these ordinary moments of happiness. That night, after putting the children to bed, April sat at her desk in the study working on a manuscript for a new picture book. The theme was forgiveness, a challenge she herself was still exploring. Outside the window, stars filled the sky. The same stars she had looked up at in her moments of despair. But now, they seemed to watch over her new life like hopeful lights. True happiness doesn't always come in perfect form. Sometimes, it's found in unexpected places after deep suffering. April smiled softly as she turned to her manuscript.